Alright, what do we have here? Here we have a set that's called xi. That's the Greek letter xi, if you're curious. And I think it's pronounced, I probably got this wrong, but xi. Weird, huh? That's a Greek letter. So we have a set that has 40 students in it. There's 40 students in it. There are set C, a subset C is students who own a cat. Subset D is students who own a dog. And then we have some people who don't own cats or dogs. Let's go ahead and do some basic algebra. If we take all of this stuff and we add it up, it should equal 40. All right? So we have x times x plus 3, presumably the way this is written, plus the overlap, plus the 4x, plus the 3x minus 6 should equal the 40 kids in the set, or the 40 people, students, whatever. So look, we get to do some algebra, even with Venn diagrams. So let's just do some basic algebra. That's going to give us x to the second plus 3x because we are comfortable with the distributive property. What do we have here? We have another 7x. We have 7 minus 6, which is 1. We're still equal to 40. Let's just treat y'all like your little kids and not do a whole bunch at once. 7x and 3x makes 10x. We have plus 1 equals 40. Typo there happened. And I'll know I did this right in just a second if what I created factors, because nobody's going to try and make this any worse than it has to be. 1 minus 40 is negative 39. Now we're going to use the zero product property. We'll have x, plus 13, and then x minus 3 equals 0. So we have a choice of x values. X is either a negative 13, or by using the zero product property here, x is 3. Negative 13 doesn't make sense. Here's an old vocabulary word. It's extraneous. Remember that word? So x equals 3 is the real solution. All right. So here's what we're told. We're told that this person owns a cat. We're told this person owns a cat. What is the probability they own a dog? Well, first what we're going to do is we're going to see how many kids own a cat by plugging that 3 in. So the number of kids who own a cat is going to be 3 times 3 plus 3, add that 7. And that's going to give us, 18 here? 25. So there's 25 kids who own a cat. Of those kids who own a cat, 7 also own a dog. You got this overlap space right there. That's 7. So again, of the 25 kids who own a cat, 7 own a dog. So the probability of owning a dog given a cat is 7 in 25. Pretty cool, huh? I don't know. Do with it as you will. Given f of x is x cubed minus 3 and its inverse is the cube root of x minus 3b, what is the value of b? The easiest way I can think of doing this is to actually figure out the actual inverse of f of x. Or you can be autistic and just sit there and try and do it in your head, like whatever. Just do it. There's 3 steps in writing an inverse. Step 1, swap x and y. So if I swap x and y, it becomes x equals y cubed minus a 3. Step 2 is to resolve for y, and it's only going to be 2 steps. The opposite of subtraction is addition. The opposite of Cubing is to cube root. I'll switch over to pencil here. I don't have a cube root symbol I can type easily. But what I would do is I would take the cube root of both sides. And there we go. The inverse is literally the cubic root of x plus 3. Now, they're saying this. They're saying the cubic root of x minus 3b must equal what I actually have, the cubic root of x plus 3. You ought to be able to figure this out. It has to be negative 1. If you don't, you'll have to go through and do the algebra. You cube both sides, right? You'll have x minus 3b equals x plus 3. You'll shift your x's over, they'll disappear. And the b value is negative 1. Either way you do it. But I think once you actually write the inverse and you do a lineup process, it should be pretty obvious what the actual value of b is. Study of the red-tailed hawk population in a given area shows the population hawks as a function of time can be represented by hawks as a function of time is 50, the initial population, times 1.19 to the t, where t represents the number of years since the study began. In terms of the monthly rate of growth, the population can best be approximated by which of the following functions? Now, you are taught this. The issue is, do you recall it? But so long as you multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number, you do not change its value. So, I want a monthly rate of growth, and I happen to know that there are 12 months in a year. True story, I had a kid this year who didn't know that. They figured it out this year. Now, where I do the multiplication is going to be kind of interesting to some people. I'm going to do the multiplication to the exponent. I have a t, and I'm going to multiply it by 12 over 12. Now, I have properties of exponents that let me do this. I have a property that talks about x to the a to the b is x to the ab. I am able to move pieces inside, okay? So there's the 50. It's going to stay by itself. I'm going to take the bottom of this fraction. I'm going to move it to the inside. And what I'm going to be left with is just 12t on the outside. If I understand that property, I'm only choice 1 or 3. Now, this number, I can literally push buttons. So I'm going to push some buttons. 1.19 to the 1/12th power is 1.015. And I have a 12t on the outside. Choice 1. Factor this thing completely. This is done by using a technique called factoring by grouping. I notice that both of these pieces contain an x squared. If I just look at the front, I have x squared. If I pull it from x cubed, I have x. If I pull it from 4x squared, I have 4. Both of these pieces contain a negative 9. This is an Algebra 1 skill. I swear it is. If I pull a negative 9 from negative 9x, I am left with x. If I pull a negative 9 from negative 36, I am left with positive 4. What I am down to is I am down to 2 factors. They both have x plus 4 in common. And the crap left over is x squared minus 9. Now, I really tried hard to get you to memorize that a squared minus b squared is a minus b times a plus b. I tried really hard to get you to memorize that. And it has the word completely here. So x squared minus 9 factors as x minus 3 times x plus 3. Because the outside makes the negative 9, the inside makes x squared, and they cancel each other out. It's easy peasy Japanesey. Moving on. Determine if x plus 4 is a factor of 2x squared plus 10x squared plus 4x minus 6. Explain your answer. There are numerous ways to do this problem. Numerous ways. The most obvious way to do this is to do long division. So I'm going to show 3 different techniques. I could probably show 4 different techniques. So here's one method. We'll do long division. So I turn an x into a 2x squared by multiplying, 2x cubed by multiplying by 2x squared. I invoke the distributive property. And I wrap before I subtract. And those cancel. 10 minus 8 is 2. Then I bring down. I got to bring down the plus 4x. I turn an x into 2x squared by multiplying by 2x. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 4 is a positive 8x. And I wrap before I subtract. Negative 4x. Bring down that. Negative 16. I turn an x into a negative 4x by multiplying by a negative 4, and I invoke the distributive property again, and I get negative 4x minus 16. I wrap before I subtract, and I get a 0. So if I'm explaining, I say yes, comma, the remainder of long division is 0. All right, there's one technique. I said I'd show multiple techniques. I can also kind of think of it like I've trained you to do on your basics quizzes. You know, think about it like this. That means that x is negative 4. We've done this. I can do synthetic division with a negative 4 out front. So here's another technique. I have no idea if you have a calculator on you or not, but I'm saying is I have no idea if this is a calculator problem or not. But I take a negative 4 and I do synthetic division. Doesn't look like I need any placeholders. I drop and I multiply and I add. I multiply and I add. I multiply and I add. And I could say yes, comma, the remainder from synthetic division is 0. Something else I could do. All right, so there's one technique. The third technique comes from actually knowing what's called remainder theorem. So there's a little theorem out there called remainder theorem. And remainder theorem says if f of c equals 0, comma, then x minus c is a factor. All right? That's what remainder theorem says. So x was negative 4. So if f of negative 4 equals 0, then x plus 4 is a factor. And this is a free response question. You're supposed to show your work. So f of negative 4 happens when you plug in a negative 4. And I'm pretty sure this came from New York. This is a non-calculator part of the EOC. Of course, we know how kids do when they don't have calculators. I got to crank the math out by hand. 2 times a negative 4 cubed. Negative 4 cubed is negative 64. Don't you think that's like negative 8 cubed? Negative 4 squared is 16. 4 times negative 4 is minus 16. I have minus 16 again. 2 times a negative 64 is going to be negative 128. 10 times 16 is 160. Negative 16 minus 16 is negative 32. Negative 128 plus 160 is going to be 32, and then I have 32 minus 32, which is 0. And I can say yes, comma, by remainder theorem, since f of negative 4 equals 0, then x plus 4 must be a factor. So anyways, there's 3 different ways. The fourth way to do this would be to justify your answer with a graph, but this came from New York and they don't allow the TI-84 to be used on this particular part of the test, so no. Alright, the last one, and I am done with this homework video. An initial investment of $1,000 reaches a value called V sub t, value as a function of time. According to the model, value as a function of time is 1,000 times the growth factor, 1.01, raised to the 4t, where t is the time in years. Determine the average rate of change to the nearest dollar per year of this investment from year 2 to year 7. So, here is what we do. It writes down the formula for average rate of change, f of b minus f of a, sitting pretty over b minus a. It considers this to be a and that to be b. So it's b minus a, 7 minus 2 in the bottom, a 5. Then it goes off to the side and it finds f of b by letting that be a 7. If it does not know what 4 times 7 is, it does not have to know what 4 times 7 is. And it finds that's 1321.29. 1321.29 minus, because there's a minus. And this time it's going to find f of a by letting that t be a 2. And if it does not know what 4 times 2 is, it does not have to. And it gets 1,082.86. And then it pushes some more buttons in a TI-84. 1321 minus that guy is that, divided by the 5. Sorry, I need to put this on a piece of paper. 238.43. And when I divide by 5, I get 47.69. This is money, I think. So 47.69, and they want nearest dollar. $48 per year is the average rate of change. And that is that assignment.